Hello, welcome to Feedback for the week of January 12th, 2011. I'm getting used to the whole 2011. I guess it's like, just because there's two of the same numbers at the end of the year, it's like every marketer's like, I figured it out. I know when my game's coming out. Oh, let's relaunch a TV show on that day, too. Okay.
One.
Yeah. I mean, I guess it's like our last option till 22. 22.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then, who knows? We'll probably have Uncharted 15 by that point.
Well, the world will have been ended by then anyway. So
Yeah,
Oh, that's true. I keep on forgetting.
it's on the calendar for next year.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we just have a good
This
12
is
months
why
left.
I'm not making any more plans.
Right.
I have stuff to do until the end of 2012.
Beyond December of next year, don't even.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's a
once
Facebook
again,
invite.
thank you, Roland Emmerich, for teaching me important things in life, like what movies I don't like.
That said, if you have a strong enough limo, you can outrun the earthquake.
Or the sun, if you're
Yeah,
Riddick.
yeah.
That's important. Let's introduce our panel. Jake Gaskill, fresh off of his review of Little Big Planet 2. You've been awash in cuteness.
I have.
It seems to have done you well. I mean,
How could it not? It just
most
rejuvenates.
everyone has to take a lot of omega-3, but look at you. You're just playing LVP. Chris?
You followed that up.
Chris Monfett?
Really, no.
There's
Just
How much omega-3 are you getting?
too little. Far
Really,
too
you're
little, yeah.
you're fresh from the freezing cold of New York.
I'm fresh
in the
from
company
CES
of
and THQ in New York.
THQ in New York. It's it's been 80 degrees here.
I was freezing my ass off for the last week. So
Yeah. We were glad it was you.
yeah,
We were glad it was you.
Thanks. I took that one for the team.
And Rob Manuel.
Oh.
Just because he's here.
Yeah.
We said, Rob, get on the show now.
not?
And now you're here. So thank you so much, all of you, for joining. Let's talk for a sec about not the biggest news week. I would say this isn't, it's not, Miyamoto didn't don a dress and say, hey, this is what the 3DS does to you if you're under 6.
Forces you to don a dress.
Yeah. You can't tell.
And dance around like
you
that.
can't tell the right clothes from the wrong ones. No, that
Wait a
didn't
minute, I've
happen.
been putting on a dress for no apparent reason. Just for Miyamoto.
And the 3DS isn't out yet, so you have even less of an excuse.
That's true.
Yeah.
It's also what Rob Manuel does to you too. Just forces you to put on dresses.
So Portal 2, this was probably one of the most surprising announcements of last year's E3. It's on the PS3 after Gabe Newell's frequent and vitriolic statements about what he thought about the PS3's architecture. But not only is Portal 2 going to be on the PS3, it's going to come with Steam support, and you get a free copy of Portal 2 to play on your Mac or your PC, and it has cloud save, so you can just move between one console or the next. That sounds kind of like, hey, we're kind of copacetic now with Sony. Am I crazy here?
No, I mean, it's absolutely amazing. And also they're talking about like cross-platform play between like PC and the PS3, which is one of those things that like people have already they've talked about forever, where it's like, could, the console ever play with the PC? And there have been a couple of things.
And this is for the cooperative play that's going to be incorporated into Portal
and this
2.
is the first time where it's like, yes, this is actually going to work. And this is a game that a lot of people are excited about. And it's like, this could be something new. This could be something brand new. Like if they're doing this with this, like Team Fortress or, Half-Life, whenever that's going to come out.
Yeah.
Left 4 Dead. Yeah, exactly.
Definitely.
I mean, if it works, it's going to be astounding.
Well, the one thing that makes you think what makes Portal stand a little bit different from Team Fortress, Left 4 Dead, is that while it's from the first-person perspective, it's not that kind of a shooter where someone with a mouse and keyboard might have that level of finesse that gives them an edge over someone with the console.
But like looking at a lot of the things that you have to do in Portal 2, like there's timing issues, there's like having to hit the portals just right. Like, yes, you don't have to like click your mouse constantly until the other person is dead, but there are certain, like there is a certain level of finesse to get through some of the puzzles that we've seen, where it's like if your timing's a little bit off, that guy is hitting the acid bath.
Also, just the idea of being able to like be playing your PS3, save, and then go somewhere later where you just have your PC and to pick up the game again. Which I don't know if that's actually part of it, but if it is, because they have cloud saves, that's part of the thing.
Completely.
So that's kind of crazy. Also,
It's be like, great. I can play any of my 45 copies of Portal 2 on any device at any time.
Because there's some moments like, my PS3, it's in the other room, but my laptop, it's right here.
Right. I just need to move locations.
Well, if you want to like go to a friend's place, or if you want to, you don't have to take your PS3 with you to your grandparents or whatnot.
I like the idea of going to your friend's house like, hey, you bore me. I'm using your computer to play Portal 2. When you get interesting, tell me. Why the PS3? Has there been any indication that Sony's technology somehow makes this more viable than Microsoft? I mean, that's the one thing that, Microsoft, look, without a doubt, has the better online system. Yeah. There are all these things that would make the 360 look more appealing in this regard. It is kind of surprised me that Sony would kind of get this.
I don't know if there's been any kind of official things. It's just interesting given their history of talking about how hard it was to develop for the PS3.
Yeah.
You kind of expected eventually them to come around and kind of give the PS3 owners some love, but this goes so far beyond that. It almost seems like they'd been planning something like this forever ago, but just couldn't figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
And we're like...
They were talking
equally
smack the whole time.
Equally ironic given Microsoft's, sort of constant love for the idea of the cross PC console gaming era.
And you know what? Now that I think about it, maybe the word that we haven't paid attention to that answers this question is Mac.
Yeah.
Because that ain't going to happen on a 360. No. And clearly, Steam's now on the Macintosh, on Apple platforms that, they want some ownership of all the stuff out there. And Microsoft does preclude that. Gears of War. It's getting a triple pack.
Woo.
That means it's got Gears 1, Gears 2. No, not Gears 3. It's got the All Friends collection. Gears 3 comes out at the end of the year.
That won't be confusing on the pack.
Pay extra money for that.
It should be three Gears of War 3 pack.
It should be a 2.5 pack.
To confuse people even further.
Or just Gears pack Gears. A pack full of Gears.
Done.
Pack full of Gears.
Yeah.
Gears of pack.
pack. So it's got Gears 1, Gears 2, the All Friends collection. This is 38 maps, 61 campaign chapters, and every achievement for $30.
It's like nothing.
That's not bad for someone like me. And trust me, I can't find my copies of Gears. I mean, I just loan too much stuff out, which is weird because I don't have friends, so I don't know really who's getting all my copies of my games.
Yeah,
Gnomes.
Gnomes are my brother. Those are the two options I have here. So, I mean, clearly they're gearing up.
I didn't give it to my brother. It must have been the gnomes. Damn it.
But this is just another. I mean, we've seen these before. The GTA 4 complete edition, the Borderlands, all the DLC on one disc for $30 for a fraction of what you would pay for all of it. Really, that incentive to wait around for a year and get everything.
Yeah.
For half off. It's really kind of, I don't know. Would you wait around for it? Knowing
no.
I
mean, this is definitely for like the people who haven't jumped on. I mean, I don't know who hasn't jumped on the Gears bandwagon yet, but like if you have
Gears has a bandwagon,
I think it does.
Come on, it's the apocalypse.
It's got a full piece band, a great percussion section. Their brass a little off.
Needs some work.
Needs some work.
Yeah. Woodwinds though.
Woodwinds.
Yeah, they're not playing Tipitinas anytime soon. But you know what? They're kind of fun if you're in the area.
But like $30, all this, like that's hard to pass up. For anyone, if you're like, you're going for it.
But you do make a point, though, in that, like, when you say Borderlands, I know lots of people who hadn't jumped on the Borderlands train wagon and that just bandwagon. Train wagons.
I like train wagons. I like train wagons.
That just sounds lonely. It's like, I'm on a caboose with my Borderlands.
But, like, Gears is one of those games where everyone I know has played that game. So who hasn't gotten all this content already except for my dad?
Gears, though, really is not Halo. And I think it's more... I'm speaking without any data in front of me, but if you even stack it against Fable, I think Fable might even have an edge on them. That it's within the core gaming community, it's really, really big, but it's even sort of more. It's got a lot of penis in it, and I think that which there isn't as much in Halo or obviously Fable. Like in that soapbox I did. It's kind of about large men with large
penis.
Guns and. It just kind of says penis.
Just he's talking about frozen peas, the essence of peas.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. Green
anyway,
penis.
we'll just move on.
Rosebud frozen penis.
Is there a release date?
Yeah, February 15th.
February 15th. Oh, it's soon. Okay, that'll give me some time to brush up on my Gears before Gears 3 comes out.
Just in time for Valentine's Day. If you need more penis.
Right. Now, granted, it is worth pointing out that I wonder how quickly they put this together because Gears was supposed to be coming out this April. And then, Microsoft said, look about November. It's kind of like April, but colder. And at the end of the year.
It fills a hole.
Yeah.
And as we were saying earlier, just make sure you play Gears 3 before 2012.
Was I going to be the one to have to make that?
Yeah,
that
it fills a whole penis joke.
Thank you.
There we go. Look at that.
Please write in.
We're so clever here.
You're welcome.
The DSi no longer being made. Yeah. The DSi.
Rob says a shingle tear.
Let's just clarify because I get confused.
Yes.
This is the one with the camera?
Yes.
So you could download stuff.
The smaller version of the
one.
The
smaller one.
But they're still making DSi XL.
Yeah, but they're still they're making the bigger one.
Well, yeah, that one's the size of a waffle maker.
That's,
and can make waffles.
It comes with a small child to carry it around, but the smaller one, doing away with.
Yeah. I guess it's not too shocking. I mean, the 3DS is coming out. The DSi. I mean, I guess what makes sense about the DSi XL is that seemed to be moving with some of their marketing for it, where you would see what's her face from Friends playing with a sister or friend. It seemed, there would be like Sharon playing Professor Layton and solving puzzles together. The XL works with two people, and as we've learned with the 3DS, that's you in the game.
Yeah,
you're not going to have a friend looking over your shoulder because they're going to vomit over your shoulder. And it's going to kind of
like 4D.
It'll run down into
like
your
surround.
pants. Yeah. It'll be really bad. See, guys,
this
is what happens when Abby isn't here.
Right. God, this is what we're going to vomit.
It's the new interactivity.
Yeah.
Oh, God,
I mean, this sounds like. I mean, Nintendo hasn't like made an announcement like, "Hey, we're not making it," but just people are starting to realize that what's on the shelves is all that's left. Mm-hmm. I mean, I would say that they're getting ready for a massive hardware launch. Uh-huh. And that just there's no need to have too many things with the word 3 with DS. I mean, I actually when they announced the 3DS still thought it was a bad idea to have DS in it just for that level of confusion.
Right.
I mean, there's probably more than enough viewers who at one point in time wanted one thing and they got the previous iteration of it and were just made fun of mercilessly on the schoolyard. And this seems ready to cause that same problem right here. So no more DSi. Do you want to play taps?
Does anyone know how to play taps?
All right, there we go.
Not even going to try.
All right.
If we only had the
now
bandwagon
into
with us.
really, I think it was the source of most of the news from last week, even though it couldn't be reported on last week because of embargoes. But THQ had some fine members of the gaming press out to the rather chilly New York
That's the way
city.
to say it.
So here, I'll let you take this. Homefront DLC, it's coming to the 360 first.
Yep.
That seems to be about as pro forma an announcement as you're going to get for any game that's multi-platform. What did you learn about this?
Well, we like you said, we know that it's coming straight to the Xbox 360 first, and Xbox is getting an exclusive map called Suburbs, which we got to play around with a little bit.
Say exclusive one more time.
Exclusive.
You did it. Yeah, I mean...
You like that?
You know what? If Roland Emmerich's right about 2012, at least I'll never have to say the goddamn word exclusive again. Back to you, Chris.
Xbox is getting an exclusive map called Suburbs, which we had the opportunity to play around with a little bit. We'll be able to say more about that later in this week. This was a pretty heavily embargoed event, but needless to say, we got to see a bunch of THQ's stuff, some of which was very exciting, some of which was a little bit less so. But I think the one thing we can say with regard to Homefront is that this is not just a game, but a franchise and a series that THQ has big plans for beyond simply the game's initial release.
Now, where do you think they have their plans? A lot has been made about, it's about North Korea invading the U.S. and Crazy Pants that did Apocalypse Now.
John Milius.
John Milius.
Thank you, John Milius is writing the story. But is this... If you look at the single player versus the multiplayer, I mean, where do you think the emphasis? What do you think is going to be kind of the major push for this game?
It's interesting. It was interesting to me because I couldn't get a sense of that, even having played both of them. We got to play through a little bit of the first chapter of the single player campaign, which was looking real good. I mean, it looked like it had the sort of thought put into it that a screenwriter would put into something. But it's a very heavily multiplayer game. They've thrown a lot of features, a lot of time and effort into making it both familiar to Call of Duty fans and regular FPS multiplayer fans, but also trying to give it something different so that it is sort of occupying its own space within the genre. So.
Did you get a sense when you were there, because the game comes out in about 3-4 weeks, that they're kind of just crossing their fingers that Kim Jong-il keeps his yapper shut and his finger off of the buttons? I mean, because a couple of months ago, I was starting to wonder if this game might be a victim of just like unfortunate current events with all the tensions on the Korean Peninsula.
Yeah,
I mean, it's was there any comment to its?
No, I mean I think they, to their credit, are treating it like a game. It's a work of fiction, et cetera, et cetera. So it's hard to sort of dig through the PR speak into what maybe they really are. But I mean, they were demonstrating, THQ's Danny Bilson was demonstrating a level of enthusiasm for this game, even going so far in one of the interviews that we did with him that you'll be able to check out pretty soon, as to say, oh, when Homefront 2 comes out. I mean, they clearly have a roadmap for this franchise.
Well, and this is all part of THQ really trying to become as big a player as a Ubisoft.
Yeah.
I don't want to say Activision or EA, but be like in that very, very strong section, right below the two big publishers. I mean, from the stuff that you saw, are they moving in that direction? Remember, like they have Tim Schafer making DLC, and they have Patrice Desolé, who is formerly of the Assassin's Creed team. I mean, they seem to be investing in places.
Right. It's interesting to me because they revealed the new logo, the new THQ logo, which hopefully by now you've all seen. With the emphasis on the Q, and which to them means quality. I mean, they want to put out quality product, and they want to put out creativity, and every single game we saw was a sequel or another iteration of a franchise. So there was a little bit of a question mark sort of over my head through the whole event.
Which also begins with Q, just so you know.
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to point that out.
Yeah, Q for question. When are we going to see, aside from, say, stacking, which was maybe the most original thing that we saw there, when is that sort of philosophy going to reflect itself in sort of the creativity and bravery of new IPs and new franchises?
Before we get to a very interesting THQ story, I want to talk more about the event. What were some of the other games that you are able to talk about that are worth talking about?
We got to see, got our hands on stacking, which is a very fun, very unique.
So even for me, because I haven't gotten to see this, every time Tim Schafer was here, apparently he knew I wasn't here, and that's why he would stop by.
Oh, completely.
So I know it involves Russian dolls.
Yes, it does.
But how does that translate into gameplay?
So what ends up happening is you play the youngest son of a chimney sweep family that gets sort of kidnapped by this local baron and forced into slave labor. And
that old tale.
It becomes a weird game about it's like a Russian Dickensian kind of world. And sort of you enter into these stages in which you are given objectives. So for instance, clear the deck of the cruise ship. And there are, say, 4 or 5 ways for you to do that, all of which can be accomplished simultaneously. So you don't have to restart a level. You can qualify all 5 factors to get, a 5-star rating or 4-star rating or however many you can choose to accomplish. You do this by stacking into larger dolls with more sort of specific properties. So, you might be able to stack into one doll whose, a power as effectively as that he can fart. And if you walk up to a big group and you let one rip, they run out, and you've, qualified one of the iterations for clearing the deck.
And kids, just so you know, games are art.
Yes, they are.
Back to you, Chris.
That said, speaking to that point, the visual style is amazing. I mean, the Russian doll mechanic, very cool to see. Something I mean, you're shaking your head. You've seen the game.
Well, that we actually had Tim Schafer, as Adam was saying, in for a demo, and it is gorgeous.
It is.
They talked about like the number of different types of stacking dolls that they had, because it's so easy for them to work off like the shape of the doll and then just add in like new details for each of the different characters.
They've got something like 100 different kinds of dolls.
Exactly. For a downloadable title. That's astounding.
Yeah. I mean, with Cosmic Quest and this, it looks like that Double Fine, and let's say Tim Schafer's not solely responsible for these titles. There are others there. That they're really starting to say like, hey, you can have top-notch production value in a game that is usually you're supposed to allow for a lot of sort of like warts and all type elements.
Right, and I love these smaller games because the people who are developing these games are sort of the people of their company are just like, hey, I got this great idea. Let's make a game out of it.
And it's a lot safer because your overhead's not going to be as
and it's strong. These just witty, like Costume Quest, I think was one of the best best written games of last year.
It was it made it into my top 5 games of the year last year.
And I think this one is just as adorable, just as marvelous, and I cannot wait to get my hands on it.
We got to see a couple of puzzles that we didn't even get to see when Tim came in, and there are, let's say, from the easiest solution to the hardest solution to any particular puzzle, there are a number of very creative ways to do that. And the presentation of the cinematics, that silent movie 1920s style, just to the visuals itself, the game looks amazing, looks great. It's going to be a blast.
What else was over at THQ?
I kind of want to talk a little bit about a game that I didn't think I was going to be impressed by at all. WWE All Stars. It is.
No, I'm actually impressed that you're impressed by that.
Yeah. I am not one for wrestling games. I'm not one for fighting games. Just personal taste. And this one was fun. It had energy. It had presentation. You took all the great wrestlers that I loved growing up, and pitted them against some of the great wrestlers that I really don't know about now. The fighting mechanic, the super moves, really easy to pick up the controller and learn how to play.
This is on the Wii, correct?
No, this is on every system.
I stand corrected.
It really was a blast. It's just over stylized without being like cartoonish, without being like NBA Jam kind of, so we got to play a couple of matches. Well, actually about 8 hours worth of matches on Wednesday. And I had a blast. Like, it's so much fun, visually very cool. And I would say after like 3 or 4 matches, I'd picked up kind of the basic controls, and that just sort of kept evolving throughout the afternoon.
And to be fair, like the more traditional wrestling games, that is not something you typically hear. You either know how to play them or you don't play them.
Yeah, and what I liked about it is a lot of the things that normally become kind of control stick points in other wrestling games, like reversals and getting out of moves, become little mini games. So as you're orchestrating a move, your opponent has the opportunity to reverse if they hit the right bumper at the right time. You can reverse his reversal if you hit the left bumper at the right time. So it kind of becomes a skill game, but you can kind of flail your way through it and still have a great experience. So
I want to get to our final news story because this relates to that. So word has been coming out that THQ almost made the deal with Respawn. Respawn being obviously Jason West, Vince Zampella, formerly of Infinity Ward. That's their new company. EA had always struck me as the obvious place that they were going to go. But it sounds like they really were shopping this puppy around. And THQ, we were just saying, doesn't seem to be that high caliber publisher yet. But they're about to bring in probably one of the most well-regarded new studios, I guess, that are out there. I mean, have you guys heard any more on this?
Well, we got to talk to Danny a little bit, not specifically about this, but the sense that that we got from that event was that THQ, they want to be a heavy hitter. Danny's not happy with where the company's been. He wants to put an aggressive solution into building up their profile. And I think it's a difficult decision for them to sit there and say, to do that, we want to own IPs. We want to build an IP library, which he says is his responsibility to the stockholders, and to the gamers as well. But also then to turn around and say no to that, which could potentially be such a huge undertaking for that company to be behind. So,
well, I mean, if you look at the fact, Activision owns the Call of Duty IP, and they're doing just fine with it. Yeah. So, I mean, there really is some value there. I mean, I've always been rather stunned at some of the deals that EA's been making. What THQ seemed to have an issue with seems more traditional, understandable, although maybe in the long run regrettable. Right. So thank you so much for surviving New York.
No, absolutely. I'm still falling out, but it was a great time.
So let's get on to our game of the week. Little Big Planet 2. Jake, you played it. I've been playing it. Hundred of this over the weekend. Man, this game makes me happy.
It does. It's impossible. It's impossible not to be happy when you play the game.
Happy.
Yep. You can't help it.
I mean, it is a significant change. I mean, most of the changes are small, but collectively, it feels like a huge step forward for this franchise.
It is. I mean, one of the things is, a lot of people probably look at it and say, it looks kind of similar to the first game, and it does a little bit, and it plays pretty similar to the first game. But the fact that this time around, there's just so much more to how you play the game because of the tools that are in this game. It's unbelievable.
I'm trying to think of what is the different that other people want. It's like, there's not enough blood. I want more blood in my Little Big Planet.
Which I think some people made comments on in the review too. And the reason that I just bring that up is that if you had that kind of issue with it going in, first of all, it's not your franchise. Yeah. You're not going to play it anyway. But don't expect it to be something completely different this time. Except
it's a game based on physics, and so it's one of those things that you can only really experience by playing it, not by watching it. So.
And also like the kind of floaty platforming elements we were talking about. How this time around the level design really does a better job of incorporating that into it. But also, it's so much more about just jumping and swinging. Like you have the grappling hook now, which is awesome. But the controlinator and all the other tools, like you're jumping around, but you're also riding a camel that spits lasers and riding a bumblebee. And
you have a helmet gun that shoots cupcakes
or anything,
which is it's awesome. But like saying that, it says, "Oh, that's so cute!" That it shoots the cupcakes out of the hat. But the thing is,
Jello? Were you just doing Bill Cosby?
Yeah, I think so.
No, that was just me getting really excited about stuff. Fly. No, that's me doing that.
You see.
But
I'm not gonna
when
do
you
it.
suddenly realize how the cupcakes are utilized in that level, that's the part where it's both weight, it's something that you can jump onto. I mean, it really, it was a revelatory moment.
Yeah, the first time you see,
it's
you
like,
shoot
oh my god, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Can
When
we
it hits like a
just
platform
make
and
that
brings
the
it down, it's
quote of
crazy.
this feedback? The first time you realize how the cupcakes are used in that level.
Yeah.
It's a good quote.
I thought it was going to be something about
Totally
penises.
But I mean, it is the first game. It was much easier to admire than it was to necessarily enjoy. I think that's what I would say about the first one. And that, when you saw what people were making out of it, it's like, wow. This game, I think, is very, very fun to jump in there and play. But then also the levels themselves, I think, give a much better sense of ideas for the player as to what they can make. Whereas, like, there's so much whimsy in the first one. It was just these very kind of challenging and oddly constructed levels. Well, here, it's more simple, more elegant, but there's design elements that are just, oh my God, they're just astonishing.
And they really did. I mean, there were some sections in the first one that were really challenging, even if you were, a pretty good platformer. This one, there were very few, I can't even remember, probably a handful of sections that were like frustrating at all.
If you want to get everything, it's a much different story.
Yeah, but just getting through it is much simpler, and you see that kind of idea of them just wanting to show you everything that's possible with the tools that they give you, and it's astonishing.
But does the game ultimately just feel like a preview of what you can create, or does it feel like in itself a whole experience?
Yeah, I mean the story this time around, there's the Negativitron comes in and sucks up the crate world, and it's like a vacuum cleaner that sucks up the world, and it's up to you to kind of save it, which was kind of a bummer given the tools that are available. Now you can do voiceover and stuff, so all the characters have voices and they're great performances and stuff. But it's kind of a story we've seen before, given how much creativity there is in the actual design and tools.
I guess I found it wasn't so much the story, but the way that they told it. There are moments that are laugh out loud funny because they're just so like, what?
What the hell?
And that the characterization, I mean, it all goes into these new tool sets, that adding in the voice, being able to put together these cutscenes. They have these absolutely charming characters that really have a characterization. And remember, in the original Little Big Planet, a character in it was more just kind of architecture made to look like a character. And here you really have ambulating, gesticulating characters. I just loved it. And I know that there's a bit where you have the sack bots. I think it comes about like in the third world, and you're trying to save all of them. I began to feel very guilty when I was not always saving all of my sack bots. And I mean, it really, like, all those small things, I think, made me sort of care about it, where I felt I was forcing myself to care about it on the first one. I mean, I got to go to Media Molecule back in November, and I think I see how they can make a game like this, because it is. I know when I go see studios, I'm probably getting the best foot forward for the day.
Right.
But that place just struck me as just kind of wonderful. And that, like, nice people. It's a really nice open environment. And that, because some of the creativity, in one of the later levels when you're on a caterpillar and it's a flat surface and you're going up. I mean, those are all those small things. So it's like, oh, wow, I never really had given consideration to what you can do with the tool sets in this game.
That's the thing, too, about like the franchise, is that I don't know another franchise that lives its credo every single pixel.
Right.
It could not be, it drips creativity off of your screen. And the fact that they support the community so much with not only like their DLC and stuff, but the community is so active, and that they hire people from the community to work on at Media Molecule on the games.
But they always seem legitimately and sincerely astonished at what some people in the community are doing with their tool sets.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, they realize that they're only limited to what they have, and they would love to see what other people are doing because it only works in their favor.
Well, I think it's amazing for them as like sort of a company to just sort of like pull back the curtain behind like this whole like how you develop a game, how like gaming is designed.
Yeah.
It was great seeing these levels and looking at it not just as like I am absorbed into this world, but now it's like, okay, I kind of see how you're putting everything together and how I can use that into something I want to make, or how I can change that to something a little bit different.
And it's very evident in those changes to their level design that, in the more traditional platforming ones, I think the way to look at the first one is they did a Mario level with Little Big Planet controls, and now it's Little Big Planet levels with Mario controls, but there's always something surprising in it rather than just, hey, here's just stuff that's harder. Like, there really is a wonderful, I don't want to use the word whimsy because it's the easiest word to use, but like, you don't really know where just the level design is going next, and there's always a sense of, wow. I mean, there really is a sense of joy in this game that is quite remarkable.
That said, though, like, let me ask you, do you have a sense of where, because it felt to me like they were throwing in the kitchen sink with regard to features and sort of ideas and creativity. Do you have a sense sort of playing this, like, is there anywhere to go for Little Big Planet 3? Did they throw in as much as they absolutely could with 2? Or
I mean, I don't make games.
Well,
I don't
but I
develop
mean,
the
like
tools,
playing. I
but,
mean, was there one thing you could think of that you wish they'd?
I mean, it's hard
wasn't
to tell. It'll be interesting to see. I think what I expect more from them is to maybe use the tools to make their DLC to make completely different games.
Right.
Like I would expect like a DLC of like Little Big Planet, like they did the prehistoric moves. Actually, that is probably the biggest thing. It comes with it's like a 10-story mini game collection of move kind of co-op that you can play.
Cool.
It takes place in like the 63 billion years ago. You're playing with dinosaurs. One player plays with a regular controller, the other plays with a move controller, and it's basically like Super Mario Galaxy, where the other player kind of control the environment while the other player runs around, which ended up being a lot of fun. And it actually like is a pretty big kind of improvement on the gameplay.
Yeah.
You know, you don't expect it to work, and then you're
And
so
it
used
involves
to
the move.
Exactly. It's just a perfect
Right.
implementation of.
Well,
the move,
actually,
by the way.
Chris, to your point, there was not supposed to be a Little Big Planet 2. The
Yeah.
entire idea was that this would be a foundation
Right.
that they could just, through DLC and things like that. But then they realized their own limitations in
Yeah.
that. I would not be surprised if we don't see another Little Big Planet.
Yeah.
But this still, like this base that is number 2,
Oh, yeah.
just kind of moves forward. It really is. Yeah. It's a nice way to start off the year.
It's adorbs.
Very
Adorable.
Yeah.
That was
so-
just the one-word review that you wrote, right? It was just
Originally.
adorbs. Yeah.
It wasn't even. That was
your
just a
first draft.
dub. Door to get through it.
And then
On
someone
this-
said add about 1,400 more words.
On this, so I played this over the weekend. It wasn't the only thing I played over the weekend.
Oh, what'd you do?
I knew it.
What'd you do?
I
Don't say it.
have to make an admission.
Don't do
So
it.
my computer's been kind of beat for the past few months. Things weren't working right. I finally got it all fixed up, got a new graphics card. I'm thinking, well, with this wonderful computer that I now have to play on, how about I try that World of Warcraft thing?
Oh, no.
So I did. That was on Saturday. Today is Tuesday. I'm level 11. I have a Goblin Hunter. It's quite an impressive little game they have over there at Blizzard.
Oh, that little thing.
Semi-successful.
I think it's got legs.
Those
It's
indie
been
developers.
It's
It's
been
gonna
about
catch on.
5 years since I played it. And I've seen many people play it here at the office, just sitting there. I'm on a seahorse, traveling through the water, and I'm like, yeah, whatever. The genius that has emerged in those past 5 years at finding ways to keep you constantly satisfied and just wanting a tiny bit more is rather remarkable.
Well, you're also coming in like at a sort of relaunch point,
Right.
Yeah.
For the
Which
series.
it was when we had all those nice people from Blizzard here talking about Cataclysm. That's like, yeah, once I get the computer fixed, I should respect
I mean, I
them
think that was-
and give it a whirl. And then it whirled me into it.
Well, I think that was the most ingenious thing as soon as I heard about like taking old areas that people have been through like time and time again and then just redesigning them. It was like, you have sold another bajillion copies.
Yeah, I mean, it is not the game I had played 5 years ago, and it's a game that, for the sake of my wife, I need to tone down a little bit. But yeah, I wanted to come out. I wanted to acknowledge it. I know many people have written in. Yes, Adam is playing WoW. Thank you, Blizzard.
Can we do taps again?
You can.
Yeah.
Can you do the whole thing, please?
tap.
No, I can't.
All right, let's get to our question of the week.
Yes.
And it's from a reader called Artificial Beef. And that's how he spells it. Artificial beef.
Okay.
It's like, have you ever had like that kind of tofu that's made to taste like beef? It just doesn't make sense. I like tofu to taste like tofu.
It only
Yeah,
works when it's
exactly.
shrimp. The artificial shrimp tastes like shrimp.
Really?
Yes.
Is it shaped like shrimp?
Yeah, and it's painted red with little.
I like the tofurkey where they have the extra drumsticks. And then on the box you have to actually draw what it looks like in the wild. So you have to draw like a turkey with like 6 legs frolicking,
Made of tofu, unable to walk.
frolicking around.
No muscle
Yeah.
structure.
Don't want to use a shotgun on that one, kids. Really, you don't.
That's gonna be
All
messy.
right. So Artificial Beef writes in, do any of you feel the need for a price drop in gaming and new technology? I know that making these things isn't cheap, but when the economy is in shambles, how much longer can the gaming business and other tech companies hope to survive when their products keep getting more and more expensive? We went from $50 for a game to $60, $30 for a Game Boy Advance game to $35 to $40 for a DS game. And with the coming of the 3DS, how much more will consumers be expected to pay? It's an interesting point. I don't think we're going to see prices come down. I also don't think we're going to see prices go up.
It's actually an interesting question to ask, considering having been at THQ this past week, because I don't know if they announced a pricing model for MX versus ATV Alive. The game's going to ship at $40. It'll be a fully functional game. It'll be exactly the game they want to ship. They're shipping it at $40. Everything else is going to be microtransactions and DLC. Do you want new helmets? Do you want new pads? Do you want new bikes? Do you want new courses? Do you want new races? You can determine the value that you're going to get from that game ultimately by what you choose or do not choose to pay for it.
I mean, it's kind of, it's not exactly like a World of Warcraft model, but it's like one initial buy-in, and then it's up to the, you can continually throw money at it, depending upon your interest
And
level.
the money that you throw at it goes back into the company. So, like, for, like, used games. Mm-hmm. Like, if you happen to, get that, sell it to, Store X turns it around.
Yeah.
If that new customer now wants, like, a helmet or new bike or anything like that, they're going to get the DLC and they'll go back into the company itself.
I mean, you're making an interesting point because what we're looking at is actually a problem that's similar to the music industry.
Right.
Is that they're scrambling to find alternate ways of revenue streams through their artists. And that right now in the gaming industry, I mean, with some exception, it's I buy the game, maybe there's some DLC, that's it. But yeah, it is... This is why we don't have new IPs much.
Right.
Is because it's just too risky. And I would love to see if they can find other ways to make money. A lot of people turn their noses up at the stuff like for MX versus ATV. Yeah. But I wish people could look at it on the flip side of that this might be a saving grace of the game industry so we can get more interesting and new content.
The question, though, I think then becomes when you see that game is selling for $40, whether it's whatever the game is, I think that you kind of will instinctually look at everything else around it selling for $20 more and going, am I only getting half a game? Mm-hmm. Is there a full game here? Did they really put 100% in their effort?
Well, that'll take a while.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, think of like a shooter, a first-person shooter. Let's say like you only personally for me, I play first-person shooters for the single player.
Yeah.
And I'm not really all that into the multiplayer campaigns because I'm terrible. But another thing is like, what if they had they sold the game a little bit cheaper, but you would have to pay $10. So instead of $50, they sell it for $40, but you pay $10 if you want the multiplayer.
Right now. Right. Thankfully, Abby isn't here right now because we know what her take on that is. Yeah. But I mean, I do see the logic of the pricing model where for the multiplayer experience that it becomes subscription based.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And if you do look at it, I mean you are paying for the maintenance of the servers. Now, granted, I think all of multiplayer needs to perform better and have less open for glitch fest if you're going to have that subscription model. But I mean, these are things that unfortunately, half of them come from Bobby Kotick's mouth. And so when that man says it seems to also be kind of dripping in some kind of bile. Right. And, but I mean, I think these are realities that I don't know if artificial beef here is considered that if you want those game prices to come down, we may have to hold our nose and look at some new ways that we're going to be buying our games.
Well, I think what you'll see just more DLC, more indie games, more downloadable titles. I think again will be a kind of a nice avenue
that's
for
what
creativity.
I hope.
So that's where you'll find those
people
IPs.
Are like, I got $5, I got $10, I got some, those extra points just floating around. Mm-hmm. Check out your indie games. Check out Xbox Live. Check out all those downloadable games. I mean, there are just some fantastic. Yes, you don't get the achievement points necessarily for all the indie games, but there are some absolutely fantastic indie games out there right now that you could be playing. Epic Dungeon. There was
Amnesia.
Amnesia, which was a great one. Flotilla, which is an amazing space strategy game for the Xbox Live. I mean, there is just an enormous amount of content out there that's real cheap. You can get it right now. You don't have to get off your ass.
Yeah.
And you just go.
There's also something to be said on the full priced front about the illusion of affordability. So, if I'm looking at a game that's $60, maybe that's too big of a hit for my wallet. And I'm looking at my budget for the month and I think I can't afford that. But somehow if there were two games I wanted at $40,
you're still paying $20 more, but you're getting two games.
But I'm getting two games, so rather than spend nothing, I'm spending $80.
Exactly.
And the industry profits overall.
Yeah, I mean it's this is a good question. I think that maybe as this year goes on, we're gonna start to see this play out. I think this is a huge question when it comes to the next generation of games and why digital purchasing of games might become something because the overhead just drops considerably when you do that. Thank you very much, Artificial Beef, for your your little conundrum that we presented to ourselves today. Also, I'd like to thank our panel: Jake Gaskill, Chris Monfett, Robert Manuel. We will be back next week. I imagine Abby Happy will be joining us once again. I don't imagine that. I know that. We're going to have a lot of fun and talk about other games. What are we going to talk about next week?
I'm not sure.
I think the Dead Space 2 is coming out next week. So maybe that.
Bullstorm demo?
All right, well, I'm going to go back to Cutesville and a little bit of that whole, like, clickety, click,
Go
click,
back
click,
into
click
work.
game.
Wow.
All right,
Yeah.
I'm out of here. Bye.